It always looks so small when it happens. So easy to miss. A quiet moment, your body still, your mind drifting somewhere else, and then you feel it. Just the lightest weight settling on you. A paw. Not tapping. Not needing. Not asking. Just resting there. And if you're not paying attention, you might brush it off without thinking. You might assume it's random or habit or something simple. But it isn't. Because the truth is, most cats don't do this to other cats. Not like this. Not this slow, deliberate placement where the paw doesn't move, doesn't press harder, doesn't demand anything. It just stays. And once you really see it, once you understand what's behind that tiny gesture, it stops being small. It becomes something else entirely. Something quiet but deeply intentional. There's something most people never realize about cats. The way they communicate with us is not the same as how they communicate with each other. In the wild, adult cats are almost silent around other cats. They don't sit there meowing back and forth. They don't rely on sound the way we think they do. Instead, they use subtle things: posture, scent, the angle of their tail, the way their eyes soften or sharpen. Sound, especially meowing, is something they developed for us. Over time, living alongside humans, cats learn that we respond to certain signals, that we notice sound, that we react to it. So they adapted. They built a kind of language just for this relationship. A bridge between two completely different worlds. And that paw, that gentle, unmoving touch, it feels like part of that same bridge. But even more specific. Even more personal. Because this isn't something they do everywhere. It's not a behavior you'll see them casually using with other animals. It's not a leftover instinct from the wild. It's not automatic. It's something they figured out here in this space with you. Think about that for a second. To create a way of communicating that only exists in one relationship. That's not just instinct running in the background. That's something shaped over time. Something learned. Something chosen. Your cat has watched you. Studied you in ways you probably never noticed. They've seen how you respond to touch, to movement, to presence. They've learned what gets your attention, what feels safe, what feels calm. And out of all the ways they could reach you, the sounds, the staring, the little acts of mischief they know will pull you in, they chose this. The softest possible signal. The quietest one. The one that doesn't demand anything back. Just a paw resting. And here's the part that changes everything. That moment doesn't start with the touch. By the time you feel that paw, your cat has already been watching you for a while. Cats are incredibly tuned into the smallest shifts. The way your breathing changes when your thoughts get heavy. The slight movement in your legs before you stand up. The way your shoulders drop when you're tired, or tighten when something's on your mind. These aren't things you announce. You don't even realize you're doing them. But they do. They notice before anything actually happens. Before you move. Before you speak. Before you even fully feel it yourself. And sometimes that paw comes right in response to that shift. Not because they want food. Not because they're bored. But because something about you changed, and they felt it. That's why it often happens in those quiet, unexpected moments. When you're not calling them. When you're not interacting at all. You're just sitting there, maybe a little lost in your own head, maybe just still for a second too long, and then suddenly there's contact. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't interrupt. It just reaches you. And if you think about it, that kind of awareness, that kind of timing, it feels less like a habit and more like something else. Something closer to being understood. Not in a big, obvious way. But in that quiet, almost invisible way where someone notices you drifting and gently pulls you back without saying a word. Your cat has been learning you since the day they came into your life. Every routine, every mood, every tiny shift you never thought anyone would see. And somehow, out of all of that, they found this one simple way to connect. But there's something even more specific hidden inside that gesture. Something almost no one pays attention to. It's not just that they reach out, it's which paw they choose when they do. And once you notice that, you start to realize that even this tiny moment carries more intention than you ever imagined. It seems like such a small detail at first. Almost too small to matter. A paw is a paw, right? Left or right, what difference could it possibly make? But the more you look at it, the more it starts to feel like that detail isn't random at all. Because just like us, cats have preferences. Subtle ones, quiet ones, but consistent. If you watch closely over time, you'll start to notice patterns. The same paw reaching first for a toy. The same paw stretching out under a door. The same paw gently hooking your arm to pull you closer. It turns out, most cats have what you could call a favorite paw. A side they trust more when something actually matters. Not when they're just playing mindlessly, but when they're focused, when they're intentional. And when that moment comes, when your cat slowly lifts their paw and places it on you, there's a good chance they're not choosing randomly. They're reaching with the side that feels most natural, most precise, the one they rely on without thinking. Their best hand. Now imagine what that means. Out of all the ways they could make contact with you, out of all the signals they could use, they choose this quiet gesture. And not just that, they often choose to do it with the part of themselves they trust the most. The movement isn't rushed. It isn't clumsy. It's careful, controlled, almost thoughtful in a way that's hard to explain, but easy to feel when it happens. And if you've ever noticed that pause right before the paw touches you, that tiny moment where they seem to hover for just a second, it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like intention settling into action. But the meaning of that touch goes even deeper than choice. Because it's not just about reaching you. It's also about what that touch does for them. Long before your cat ever knew you, before they learned your voice or your routines or the way you move through a room, they knew something else. Something much simpler. The feeling of safety. When they were tiny, barely able to see, barely able to move with any control, they relied on their paws in a completely different way. Pressing, kneading, pushing gently as they stayed close to warmth and comfort. It wasn't just physical movement. It was a feeling. A signal that everything, at least in that moment, was okay. That kind of association doesn't just disappear as they grow older. It fades into the background, becomes quieter, less obvious. But it stays there. And sometimes, it comes back in moments you don't expect. When your cat places their paw on you and lets it rest there, especially when their body softens right after, when their eyes start to close or their breathing slows, something familiar is happening inside them. Not a memory they're actively thinking about, but a feeling their body recognizes. The contact itself becomes calming, grounding, safe. That's why you'll often see it happen right before they settle down completely. Right before they curl in closer, or go still in that peaceful, heavy way that only happens when they fully let their guard down. The touch isn't just outward. It isn't just communication. It's something they're using for themselves too. A quiet way of saying, I'm okay here. And without realizing it, you've become part of that feeling. Not in some exaggerated or dramatic way, but in the simplest, most real sense. Your presence, your stillness, the familiarity of you, it all blends into that moment until comfort starts to feel like you. That's not something you can force. It's not something you can rush or demand. It only builds over time, in all the ordinary moments that don't seem important while they're happening. Sitting in the same room. Moving through the same routines. Being there without asking for anything in return. Until one day, without any announcement, without any clear turning point, your cat just trusts it. Trusts you. And maybe the most powerful part of all of this is how quiet it is. There's no big signal. No obvious display. No loud declaration that something meaningful is happening. It's just a paw. Resting there. But behind that small gesture is a chain of things most people never see. Observation. Choice. Memory. Comfort. All layered together into something that looks simple on the surface, but carries far more weight than it seems. And yet, even with all of that, there's still one more piece. One final layer that makes this gesture even more rare than it already feels. Because reaching out like that, in such a quiet and unguarded way, comes with a cost. A small one maybe. Easy to overlook. But for a cat, it matters more than you'd think. And once you understand that part, you start to see that this isn't just a sign of comfort. It's a sign of something deeper. Something they don't give lightly. Cats are built to be ready. Every part of them, from the way their muscles coil to the way their eyes track the smallest movement, is designed around one simple idea. Be prepared. At any moment they can move. Instantly. No hesitation. No warning. 4 paws on the ground, body balanced, senses alert. That's their natural state. That's how they stay safe in a world that doesn't always give second chances. So when a cat lifts one of those paws, even for something as small as touching you, they are, in that moment, choosing to be just a little less ready. It doesn't look like much. You probably wouldn't think twice about it. But for them it matters. That single shift changes their balance, their posture, their ability to react in an instant. It's subtle, but it's real. And they feel it even if they're not consciously thinking about it. Which means that when your cat rests their paw on you and doesn't pull it back right away, they've made a quiet decision. To stay. To not prepare for the next escape. To not assume something might go wrong. They're allowing themselves to be just a little more exposed than usual. Just a little more open. And that kind of openness doesn't come easily to them. Because for a creature that lives between being both hunter and hunted, safety is never taken for granted. It's constantly evaluated. Constantly updated. Every sound, every movement, every shift in energy gets processed even when they seem relaxed. So if your cat is lying beside you, body loose, breathing slow, and then gently places a paw on you without tension, without pulling away, that's not just comfort. That's trust settling in fully. Not the kind of trust that's loud or obvious. Not the kind that demands recognition. But the quiet kind that shows itself in what they don't do. They don't flinch. They don't stay on edge. They don't keep one foot in readiness. They stay. And the truth is, not every cat reaches that place. Some cats go their entire lives holding on to a small layer of caution, even with people they like. A slight distance. A quiet alertness that never completely fades. So when a cat crosses that invisible line with you, when they let themselves be this still, this open, this unguarded, you're seeing something rare. Something chosen. Because here's the part that matters more than anything else. They didn't have to choose you. Cats were never shaped to depend on us the way some other animals were. They came close to humans on their own terms, slowly, over time. They stayed because it worked for them, because it felt right, not because they were built to bond at any cost. Even now, that choice is still there. Every single day your cat decides how close to get, how much to give, whether to lean in or pull back, whether to trust the space they're in, or keep a part of themselves held at a distance. And if, in one of those quiet, unremarkable moments, they reach out with their paw, not asking, not demanding, just resting it on you, that's part of that choice. A small one maybe, easy to overlook, but it carries everything inside it. All the watching they've done. All the patterns they've learned about you. Every moment where nothing happened, but they were there anyway, quietly taking it all in. Every time you didn't startle them, didn't push too hard, didn't break that fragile sense of safety they were building piece by piece. Until eventually, safe started to feel like you. And when that happens, the way they connect changes. It becomes softer, simpler. Less about getting something and more about just being close. That paw, it doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't even need a response. It just rests there like a quiet confirmation of something already understood. I'm here. And I trust this. And maybe the most powerful part is how easy it is to miss. How something so meaningful can exist in such a small, silent gesture. No sound. No movement. No obvious signal that says, this matters. But it does. Because in that one little moment, your cat, an animal that could have stayed distant, that could have kept its guard up, that never had to form this kind of bond at all, chose connection, chose you. And all of that meaning, all of that trust, all of that quiet, steady closeness, it lives right there, in that one gentle paw.